Hello and welcome to this week's quick IQ episode where we talk about insights and questions. And today I want to share with you a very powerful insight regarding the topic of overwhelm, just because I see so many people who are struggling with it and trying to get out of overwhelm. And yet no matter what they do, they feel stuck. And it's like they try to change their lives. It's like trying to outrun overwhelm. And no matter what you do, it seems to always catch up. And so that's what I want to share with you in today's IQ episode. And technically, I want to share the top 3 reasons that this happens. And so starting with reason number 3, and it's this. It's that all the time people have subconscious programming that keeps them aligned with feelings of overwhelm. And a couple that I've seen, in one class, I worked with a beautiful, beautiful being, and she had a pattern of feeling like if she was overwhelmed and so busy, it meant that she was important. And on the other side, if she wasn't busy, it meant that she was lazy, and that was not safe. And so she had this feeling of feeling like she had to stay busy, which meant constant overwhelm. And not only that, but the more important that she felt, the more she felt that she had to be busy, which just continued to create the same. Now, of course, consciously, she didn't want to feel that way, but that's how she felt in her subconscious mind. And I have seen that, I mentioned in one class, I have seen that back to back to back in the subconscious mind. And of course, the subconscious mind controls 90 to 95% of your brain activity, your emotions, your mind programming. And so it wasn't something that she programmed into her mind on purpose. Now, another programming that I've seen is people maybe who grow up and they have a parent that says, they hear their parent say something like, well, got to keep the kids busy so they stay out of trouble. And that gets linked up. So then I'll work with somebody who's 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, 70 years old, and their lives are just stuck in overwhelm. And then as I'm working with them and we're checking into their mindset, it's like this feeling like, subconsciously, of course, that if they're out of overwhelm, that they'll get in trouble. So staying busy keeps them out of trouble. Not consciously, of course, but subconsciously. They'll have it linked up in their subconscious mind from childhood that if they're not staying busy, they're going to get in trouble. They'll be a bad person or a bad kid. Now, of course, this makes no logical sense for a lot of people. And even people that I have found this subconscious programming are good people who aren't in trouble all the time. So it's not like it's a realistic fear, but it's programmed into their subconscious mind. And so in their mind, it is programmed to say, well, it's just safer if I'm always busy. And that's linked up. And so point being is that it doesn't necessarily make logical sense, but that is one of the main reasons that I'll see somebody who'll be stuck in overwhelm. No matter what they try to do or try to change, that it just keeps catching up. They just have this feeling that busy is good. And so maybe they've told themselves that 100 times, busy is so good, busy is so good. And if you're somebody who's caught yourself saying busy is good, you might want to change that to productive is good. Productive is good. And being in flow and productive is good because it's a different vibe. So that's number 3. Now, number 2 has to do with a feeling of being out of alignment with what you're headed towards. Meaning that I have seen people who have said, well, after I get done with this, I want to start dating. And they have all this fear about dating in their subconscious mind. So part of them wants to and part of them doesn't. And so they say, well, as soon as I get caught up, then I'm going to start dating. And of course, life is like, oh, caught up? Okay, well, here's 100 more things. You're never going to get caught up. Or other times, people are wanting to make more money, and then they're going towards that, but they're not in alignment with it. And what you want to remember is that everything that we manifest in our lives, there's part of your mind that wants something and part of your mind that doesn't want it. And it's a lot like driving a car with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. And it gets stuck, in your mind. And so what'll happen is they're going towards a goal and they're trying to achieve it, but it's like they're going for the goal, but they're so out of alignment with it, or even they're out of integrity in some way that it just keeps them in a state of overwhelm. So that's another thing. And by the way, as far as aligning with what it is that you're wanting, just like with relationships, where people want to be in a relationship and then they're scared of it. I have worked with people with healing, with working with their mind for money, for success, for manifesting the very thing that they're wanting, or the house, or whatever it is. And that mixed programming gets stuck. And even though consciously they know it, in their subconscious mind, and then a lot of times people just try to program their subconscious mind in just a relaxed state, which isn't going to create the real programming. So the real programming shift that you need. So making sure to make that change and genuinely make that change and make sure you're aligned with where you're wanting to go in life. So that is number 2. And then number 1 is also your actions, of course. So a lot of times that people can we get stuck in habits. We can have habitual ways of doing things. And what happens, because I have helped people to radically change their life, is that they're changing their life. There's amazing things that happen. Then I say, okay, well, wait a second. Now you've got to reassess your habits. Are your habits still serving you? And that's what will happen, is if you're growing, you're transforming your life, you're making changes, then you've got to have moments where you start to realize, hey, I'm overwhelmed. Okay, is there something I can hand off? Is there something that I need to start doing in a different way? And then be genuinely willing to make that change. So those are the top 3 things that I see that challenge people, that keep them stuck in a place of overwhelm. It's just especially with the one with actions, it's like, if life keeps changing, we just pile things on. You want to make sure that you're changing it. You're doing it in an optimal way. And by the way, all of the time, I have seen people who, run very large businesses, who changing the structure some makes their life easy. And I've worked with people who are making more money than ever and making a bigger difference through their business than ever, and getting their life in flow. Now, when I say in flow, that doesn't mean they're sitting around doing nothing all day. That means they're not overwhelmed. They're feeling productive. They're feeling good. They're doing things, but not overwhelmed, not exhausted. And so that is key. And by the way, I have worked with people who have multiple kids below the age of 6, or 5 kids below the age of 6, because, maybe they had twins or 2 sets of twins, or, and by creating a change in the way that they do things, and lifting and creating an energy that it feels radically different. And so point being is that whatever challenges that you're working on, you want to make sure that you make a radical shift to get yourself out of overwhelm, because as we all know, overwhelm can lead to a lot of stress on the body, which can lead to illness and issues and all kinds of things. Now, by the way, on that note, burnout is a whole nother topic that actually has a lot of different links to it. And so on next week's episode, we'll talk about burnout as well, because it's a bit different. It's some of the same connections, but also different in a few ways. So that said, we'll talk about that on next week's episode. Of course, this week we'll also work with a volunteer. There's a beautiful volunteer coming up on this next episode in a few days who has all kinds of pain going on, who was able to radically shift it in a most beautiful way. So that's where we're going on the next episode. And going back to today's episode, I want to invite you that if you are stuck in overwhelm, to make sure to look in and check inside and kind of notice what is going on, because I know so often it's easy to get sucked into the frustration, to the overwhelm of being overwhelmed, that we don't have a minute to just take a step back and reflect as to why it is happening, and then realign or reprogram your mind or reassess your actions to make that radical shift in your life. And as you do, of course, it's easier to be happy, healthy, alive, productive, and really enjoy life. So that said, please do make sure to hit the share button on this episode. Share it with somebody you love, somebody you care about, or somebody you don't even know. The more happy and empowered and loving and enjoying life that every single person is in this world, the better this world is for all of us. And so thank you so much for being here. It's wonderful to connect with you, and I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. We'll see you there.